Hello and good evening. Thanks for coming to the Land Down Under Hangout. This month was my pick, and we are discussing Gearbreakers by Zoe Hana Mikuta, which I found out about this book from, I think it was probably Book Riot had a list of like new books that you really should read with diverse either authors or diverse casts, and I was like, "Ooh, yay, queer cast, and yay, found family, and ooh, mechas. I don't read a lot of that," and so I thought, okay, and then I saw the cover and was like, "Ooh, yes, I will try this," and then roped the book club into reading it with me. So here we are tonight. I guess yeah. So refresh me because I've had a long week. Do I get to tell my opinion first and then we go around, or do I go last? I don't remember.
There is no strict order. You do
Yeah,
what
I
you
couldn't
want to
remember
do.
what by convention we do. Honestly, it's been a long week, people.
Yeah.
So all right, well, I'll just go first. So I did really like it. Strangely, though, not as much as I thought I would. I thought I would be in love with this book, and I wasn't. Now I'll just put out there that I split between the print version and the audiobook. As I started with the audiobook because I was very, very busy, and normally I can do an audiobook and make sure, yeah. So, I had issues with some of the techniques used in the audiobook. It bugged me a lot, made it really hard for me to bond with one of the characters for quite a while. So I had to go read and then came back to the audiobook once I was fully up with the cast and stuff. So maybe that contributed to it. Oh, I got really grumpy with the ending, despite the fact that I knew it wasn't going to have a nice, pretty package wrap up ending because I knew there were more books.
Yeah.
So I expected some kind of cliffhanger thing. But boy, did I have grumps about that. And I think I even messaged my husband going, oh, finish the book. Boy, I'm pissed. So, yeah. So, yeah, that was me basically to start with. Let's see. We'll go Mel.
Sure. So I also started with the audiobook and had, I don't think to the same degree problems, but certainly some issues with the audiobook. I'm sure we'll discuss the details of that later. But so I also switched over because I just couldn't sustain reading on the audiobook because I very muchly have to have something to do with my hands or something to occupy me while I'm listening to an audiobook. I can't just sit and listen to the audio. So I had to switch over to the ebook, which helped tremendously, and I burned through it after that stage. So that was really good. I will say that it was definitely not a hard book to read. It was, I burned through it quite easily, especially after I got past that world entry. The world was very dark, which is always a problem for me in that respects. However, I found once I was attached to the two lead characters, I was well and truly involved in the world. I'd say it was a solid 3 stars for me. I think it's a good book, but I wouldn't say it was a great book, and I'm not sort of running around giving it to people. If someone said they're into mechas to me, I'd be like, give this a go. But honestly, I think the mechas needed more time. So
yeah, actually, yeah, I think the mechas needed more time. With that. Lisa.
I'm glad you commented on that about the audiobook because I didn't know if I alternated between the audiobook and the ebook. I actually started with the audiobook. It wasn't working out mainly because I kept falling asleep during it. So that wasn't necessarily because of the book. It was also possibly the time of day. And so I went, okay, I need the ebook. And I think on reflection, I wish I had only done the ebook and not the audiobook. Yeah, one of the characters in the audiobook did not ring true, whereas I have a feeling it might have been a little different if I'd just read it and heard the voice as I might imagine it. And I rather enjoyed it. And there were definitely a couple of twists and turns, which I hope I didn't do a spoiler, Bobby, because I at one point had thought you'd already read that bit, and I was like, oh, it just took a right angle. I did not see that coming.
No, I think that's even all you said was just, oh, the book did something I didn't expect. Which honestly, for me, I was like, okay, maybe that bodes well because often I can see things a mile away. So yeah,
because it did keep taking a couple of like little right angles or obtuse angles, I don't know, whatever angle you want to pick, but that I wasn't sort of thinking it would go in that direction. That sort of kept me reading it. It was also a little dark for me, but not, I'm better at dark when it's a world that to me isn't real, so that's sort of okay. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. Like, but it was an okay read. I would agree with Mel. It was an okay read.
Shig, how about you?
I didn't hate it, but I didn't engage with it. Wouldn't say I went so far as that I endured it. Like, I didn't want to go, well, okay, I have a pretty low tolerance for a lot of young adult writing, because it is all the feelings all the time, nonstop. Everything is just total drama and that's just, well, partially what it's like to be a teenager, and that's just one of the ways that young adult writing goes. It's great. But in this particular case, I would like to at least say that the book was good enough that did not drive me away. That I was able to go, right, okay, sure, they're just going to have their moment. I'll just tune out for 5 minutes. Yeah, still at the same point. And that was good. There was actually character development. There was a lot of things. And yeah, the ending really bugged me, because I'm like, great, they're just ripping off 1984. And then I said, hang on, this isn't as bad as 1984, because at least the whinging people are people who actually don't have the life experience, as opposed to Orwell's character, who is a whinging man-child. In that context, the book was great. So yeah, like, you know, the way it ended, now I'm just sad. Like, I didn't get closure, and if I did get closure, it would probably be sad closure. I don't know if I wouldn't actively avoid the next one in the series, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to see it as well. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I did only listen to the audiobook. I didn't look at the bit on paper. Maybe I'll be raving about it if I'd actually not listened to the audiobook. So yeah, that's pretty much me. I am ambivalent, and but it was well done, to the point that stuff that would normally bug me I could totally just ignore.
I think it's worthwhile pointing out too, this is her first book. So as a first book, I think it's actually pretty good.
Wow.
Okay, and I actually didn't know that even. I didn't go do any reading, because I was very busy. Normally I'll go and read up on the author or something else. I did not come prepared. The most I did was, because I saw a lot of people comparing this to Pacific Rim, which I will, I did last night watch Pacific Rim. And now, if Pacific Rim is the only mecha you have any experience with, oh my God, this is fabulous. And I understand why everyone's raving about it. Because I was watching Pacific Rim, and I remember thinking, I saw this, God, and I saw it once when it came out. I saw it in the theater. Shig and I saw it together. And I remember walking away from the theater going, God, I don't like this. But I couldn't remember why I didn't like it. And it had like an 8-star review on the, and I was like, maybe I was just in a place, you know, at 25 or what, I don't remember. And so I watched it last night, and I remember the whole time when things are happening, like, oh yeah, I remember why I hate this. Too much dick waving, too much this, too much that. God, the horrible Aussie accents. Like, and like,
Australian dogs are not English bulldogs. I'm sorry. Where was the Kelpie?
Yeah, like all the things. There's so many things.
Or the healer.
Like,
it could have been a healer. That would have worked.
Yeah. It's just like there's so many, so I'm just like, yeah, okay. So if the only thing that person had ever experienced was Pacific Rim, I see why they would think this book is amazing. Because all the things that Pacific Rim got shit, this one did really quite well at. So
this person clearly had a lot more experience, I think, with the more Japanese style those sorts of mechas and things along those lines. I felt like that came from that side of things more so. They use Pacific Rim because that's the Western one.
And I mean, although to be fair, most of my mecha experience is Power Rangers. So from when I was a child.
So no Gundam, no.
Okay, bits and pieces. Look, I'm sure there's stuff in there, but honestly, I was a cyber goth, like, you know, during all the like my teenage and years. So most of the stuff I was watching, the closest we're getting is like Ghost in the Shell, and that's not mecha. That's Robo, cyborg,
whole other thing,
and
AI and what really is alive.
I was much more interested. Kind of, that's where I was. So
definitely cyberpunk.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience with mechas either. Although I do think that I would probably like to read a few more that are maybe just to get a better idea.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna say a lot of the Japanese. I feel like a lot of the Japanese anime mecha shows that I've seen and enjoyed, it was humans in mechas against aliens. I'm trying to think of examples where it's humans in mechas against humans in
Evangelion?
mechas.
Oh, against humans and mechas.
Or do you know what I mean? Like
hang
like
on.
Evangelion, they're not aliens, but they're
I've
not
got one.
humans. You know what I mean?
is
It's like
it?
it's easier to see them as enemy.
I
That
can't
one on
even
the
think
tip
of
of my brain. I swear.
Yeah.
Carry on. I will look it up.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
you'll go
definitely a
Google it.
couple
All right, cool.
where there's definitely a couple of recent ones I think where it's sort of getting you at least to not do an us and them thing though. Like you're starting to actually think about the aliens as people as well, and they have their own perspective. They're just not human. Yeah.
I definitely think. Sorry,
It's Full Metal Panic.
there you go.
Oh,
Okay.
I haven't seen that. Okay, I'm gonna write that one down.
I definitely think that it is rarer that you have this circumstance where you've got mechas as a controlling the humanity element, and that they're being attacked by humans and taken down. That was something that I don't feel like I knew from the mecha experiences that I had. So I felt like that was different circumstance, very muchly so.
Actually, now to be fair, this is a white Western writer, because this is the guy from WA who also Shade's Children. He wrote Shade's Children, and it's a very similar vibe, in like it's a post-apocalyptic thing, but the story, it's the guy who also did the trilogy, and we were talking about this recently because the audiobook was narrated by Tim Curry. What is this author's name?
Garth Nix.
Yeah, Garth Nix. Okay, so he wrote this book called Shade's Children. I remember reading it when I was in like middle school, so like year 8, 7 or 8. It was really good at the time. I don't think I've read it since then. I just really liked it at the time. But the premise is that like anyone under the age of 16, like they all wake up one morning and anybody over the age of 16 has just died. Like just didn't wake up, but it's some sort of like alien thing, and these aliens have then like kind of co-opted all the kids, and they, based on their genetics and they predetermine their behaviors and stuff. They either turn them into mechas, like so that they can basically they use Earth as like a board game, like so that they can, or a battlefield, so that they can just play out their war games by using other aliens. So it is a human against human in a mecha thing, but I think that's.
I'm actually trying to find one that I remember right now, and it was literally this kind of steam generated mechas fighting against other nations and that sort of thing. They're much smaller mechas. They're not these huge giant ones that they've got in this one, but they're definitely steam powered. It's it's steampunk sort of setting, same as this sort of.
I think I know which one you mean now, but I'm not going to remember.
I'm trying to find it. It's honestly, I watched. Part of the problem is that I watched it when I was in Japan in Japanese, no subtitles. I only understood half of the thing. I couldn't tell you the name even if I tried. But I'm trying to find it because I'm like, surely it's being translated at some point, and I just didn't get that version of it.
Actually, Heavy Object comes to mind because that's an anime where humans have war against each other in these giant, they're not really mechas, like armored tank things, huge things, but it's actually about the fact that it's humans who have to take them down. So it's sort of, but it's a very different, the story goes in a very different direction but I will say that I really liked in Gearbreakers the concept of giant things that are like seem impenetrable and will attack, and the way to attack them is from the inside. Like I thought that's a really cool way to build a story.
I did sort of, and this is maybe me because I identify as an atheist, I did sort of read this as like you have these Gearbreakers who take down the deities by going in and just kind of showing that they're just bits and pieces. Like it's just science on the inside. Come on, people. Like I did kind of like that, but
it's
I found it kind of
your false gods.
I found it really kind of hard to buy into the gods element because we never saw the perspective of the people in that town. We
Yes.
saw the pilots, who obviously were more aware of what was going on than the people of the town did. And then we saw the people who don't believe in it and are literally taking them down. And so I find I would have actually preferred if it had been worded more as heroes or something on those lines. I felt like gods was just a step too far for me to buy into, for people actually to believe in.
Yeah, so I actually was wondering if she, because this was the first book in a series, if that gets explained later, because she brings in the spoilers, Zenith at the end, and they're talking as if this is like the person who controls everything, is basically the clockmaster to all of these deities. And I mean, like I just sort of suspended my disbelief around the whole deity aspect because I was hoping it would be resolved. And now I'm just assuming that we're going to get more from that perspective. And it'd be interesting if he's the only one, because he's supposedly the only one left. But yeah, I would have liked to understand a bit more from the people around, because I didn't quite understand why you had, like, why some of it was set up the way that it was with the economy around like the Badlands. I understood that there was mining and they needed the mining with the ore. I don't know if her world's just too detailed to have made it clear, or if she was so busy with other things that she didn't think to build more or clarify more around that.
I actually thought that was almost deliberate. At least it felt so, because you've got both the protagonists and the antagonists who are both very disconnected from the day-to-day reality. They're both trying to fight for something or for people and stuff. But none of them interact with those people. The only thing time you close, there's a mention vaguely near the end, which almost seems like just for plot glue purposes, where it's like, oh yes, and we have this village because we kind of needed to set this somewhere because we had to run somewhere for this 48 hours. But for the most part, it's saying, but you never even meet those villagers. There's only one person, I think, ever you meet who's not part of either the Gearbreakers or in the academy, and they literally die within 30 seconds. So I thought that was actually, I mean, I actually thought that really played into the whole, like, there's these two like opposing factions, but neither of them are in any way connected at all to the actual people that they're claiming to be fighting for.
I actually think that it was very, like, this is where I think she's so influenced by the anime aspect. I think that world building aspect comes very much from Attack on Titans, where they've got this really isolated world. They don't have this awareness of what's going outside of that. And part of the story ongoing is the discovery of more of what is going outside of there. And I don't know if that's what she's exploring later at all either, but it's certainly how they write it. And you just sort of accept certain things about it. And it's very... I think that's a common thing you get in a lot of anime as well, where it's not that there's not more world out there, it's that they often start off in a place where they're in that kind of, it's a common trope.
It's something that makes me very sad about anime, because often they're obviously building up to a much longer and more detailed plot line, which never gets done in the anime, sometimes in the manga or light novels, but because the series doesn't get picked up again. But yeah, I must admit I'm slightly intrigued to read the second book, because I do want to know if there's more development, and especially to meet the people in the city, like what is actually their perspective, because we only know sorry, this is lots of spoilers, but we only know Belsona's perspective of being kind of a lost sort of hiding refugee inside the city, and she obviously has a pretty distorted view of it and talks about it being filthy and disgusting and polluted. But surely the people, I'm thinking not everyone who lives in the city is having that experience, you know.
Not if they're maintaining control over them as well.
I mean, maybe to play devil's advocate a little bit, back to this idea of maybe she could have worked in a little bit of a glimpse into what normal people are like. She has a character who, however distorted it is clinging to these memories of something that happened and a life, and she's obviously holding this life before being brought to the academy up on this pedestal. And the only memory we ever get is the one from whenever she loses her family. Yet she's built, like, and that's the only thing she's building it around. But she kind of alludes to some other things. She keeps talking about how, I remember it was that way, but we don't even get distorted images from her about what is she imagining her life was. clearly she thinks she's so certain it was better, but usually if someone who's that certain has even fabricated something, and we didn't get any of that, it would have, I don't know, I would have kind of liked that, maybe just to make me feel a bit more grounded in why she, what she's clinging to, and would have given me some idea of the faces and culture around these people, because I couldn't quite pick out, is it that the village that she was from did view these these mecha as deities, as like gods on earth, or did they not, and they totally recognized being exploited? I didn't quite get that from what she talked about. I just got that she was pissed that she saw the connection between what happened to her village and what the mechas did, but that was it.
Generally speaking, I think though that both of them really are dealing with exceptional levels of trauma.
Yeah.
It's just, I was like, are we going to deal with the fact that you guys are like beyond ridiculously traumatized by everything that you're going in? She showed that they were traumatized. There were moments where they obviously were. I'm like, this is why I'm partially not interested in reading on, because first of all, I know now from having done my bit of research that it's a duology, so there's only one more book.
Oh, okay. I thought there were three. All right, cool.
Which is already out. So,
yep.
And yeah, I thought it was 3 too, because my brain immediately assumes things are trilogies. But I went to look and see when the next one was coming out, and that's when I found out it was a duology. So there's that, first of all. So we know that ending is done now. But I'm like, I just don't see how in one book you can get this story to a place where I would be okay with this. Like, I'd be happy with having finished it. It's going to be a traumatic ending. It has to be, because there's just not enough space. And I just don't really know if I want to finish on trauma.
Maybe it's going to be a bit of a cop-out ending like Matrix 3 had.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other option,
like
right?
It's like,
we're
sort of getting you to a place of resolution, but it's not really a place of resolution.
That's it. Like, she was either going to deal with it or not deal with it. But yeah, I was just like, that's, and I think what will end up happening is though, while I'm curious to find out, like, I freely admit it, I'm a romance girl. I enjoy a good romance. I would very much like to have a happily ever after, because that's what I enjoy. But I can't see this being a good happily ever after because of so much they've got to go through. And so while I would like to read to get a happily ever after, I'm also logically very aware of the fact that it's probably not going to be satisfying, either because she can't resolve it well, or because she won't resolve it in a way that I'm satisfied with. I don't know if I just said the same thing twice, whatever. Anyway, so my brain is like, I'm interested to know, but most likely I'll probably just let it fade from memory and not get there.
Yeah. Like, speaking of the romancy bit, like, I kind of liked what she was doing. Like, I enjoyed the bits where it was really quite sweet, and and then they had a falling out, a rather important one, mind you, and it never got addressed. It was the person who got treated as though they were like the evil one, just kind of came back and brought her some soup, and then it was fine. Like, nothing seemed to really get addressed, or maybe I missed it. Did I miss that?
There was a bit where she there was a bit where she did apologize. Was it dealt with it well and enough?
Okay, so maybe
I think it was realistic to say there wasn't enough time for that.
Okay. Anyway,
but there was more than just her giving her the soup. She also went and sought her out, and there was sort of a sort of apology moment kind of thing where they tried to talk it through, but honestly, they just didn't have time to nut it out. They were both pushing what they should be talking about aside because they needed to get on with it.
Okay. All right, I must have missed it. I remember her sister telling her off and being like, you need to go fix it.
And she did. That's the thing.
Okay.
Kind of.
But it was initially from an aspect. It was, I think it was partly because Frostbringer wanted to resolve it, but it was also from an aspect of duty. Like, it's like, well, you just suck it up, girl, because we're about to go into
because it didn't seem like an actual apology. Okay.
Can we talk about Belsona? And that was the character that I think I had the biggest issue with in the reading of the audiobook. I don't know if that's the character. Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
I had an issue with Eris.
Okay.
Really?
Eris. Okay.
My biggest issue though was how she was voiced. I didn't mind her so much. Like when I was reading, it was fine, but the way,
Ooh,
like in the audiobook, bugged me.
sorry, say
Yeah.
again, Barbara. You just Bobby, you just popped out there. You froze for a second.
Oh, my biggest problem with Airdress was mostly how she was voiced. So like I just wanted to tell her to go have a tantrum and come back and talk when she was ready. Like the way she was voiced, like when I was reading, it was much better.
See, I had exactly the same problem, but with the other narrator.
Yes. Yeah. But the other issue I had with Sona was that I didn't believe her. Like I just, her dialogue did not ring true. Like she's a traumatized person who, obviously the person who's inside her, the real one, is really downtrodden and angry and low in confidence, and and it's causing her to feel really shattered, and then she's giving sass and cheek, and I'm like, no, that's not real. It doesn't. Someone who's really downtrodden and like they don't give at it. It doesn't, I don't, that's not the way. I don't know. It just, that's not what happens.
I just read that as the persona she put in front, like that she felt like she had to be a persona, and it was a protective barrier essentially.
When she was in the academy, yes, but there was a point where she was doing it when she was with the Gearbreakers in the team, and I'm like, no, this isn't right. Sorry, I don't know. I just felt like this didn't feel real. Like it was like.
I think I read that more as she was trying to be one of the team, and they were all sassy, and Airdress was sassy, and she had such an infatuation with Airdress, and that will happen if you have someone who doesn't know who they are. They will mimic anything that they think is going to either make them safe, make them part of the team, whatever. Yeah,
that's exactly what she's been doing since she what she'd gone through, is getting through by mimicking what was around her and not showing her real self. And so it made perfect sense to me that once she got there, she just blended.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. She's obviously like, if what we're getting in her head when she's talking in her head, like her thoughts in there, if that's like her actual person, she's definitely very downtrodden. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't have any confidence, and she's constantly in this like push-pull turmoil with herself of what do I do? Other than that, I know I'm angry. But even then, like what she was angry about, she's like, I don't even know if that's true, if that's real, because they took my memories, like, or they got rid of bits and pieces of them. So yeah.
I also didn't really feel like Eris was 17. Like to me, the way I know that these kids would have had to have grown up really fast for sure, but it just felt like her voice just made me think of someone who's a bit older. It was like, no, I think she's just a little bit too much emotional understanding and perspective for a 17-year-old. Yeah.
I just feel like I'm tired of teenagers in war circumstances. That's what I was like. I didn't want her to be 17. I was like, I really don't want a teenager having to deal with all of this bullshit.
I mean, look, maybe I would have enjoyed it more if the teenagers were maybe in their mid 22, 25, and therefore slightly more mature as well, or at least more experienced with what's happening in the world a little bit. Maybe that would have been better, because that would have given the writer a little more freedom as well.
Oh, and sorry, just to put into perspective, the author is 21.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I have to say the voices sound like they were early 20s to me. Like Eris and Belsono, they didn't sound like they were 16, 17. They sounded like
I figure there's one of two things possibly going on with that. Either she's a new author, and so she's only really able to write what she sort of has inside of her, or that's actually what she was going for, because she's trying to give these teenagers a more mature look because they've grown up in war circumstances, and so she was doing it deliberate by choice.
I do agree though. Like I only got like 40 pages into the book, so not very far, and not even like to the end of the first section with Eris. I mean, first couple of chapters with Eris, but I agree with Lisa. Like she sounded like in her early 20s.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree, because I was doing the math. I was trying to figure it out, and I was like,
Every time I heard someone say, it's like, oh, but we're just kids. I'm like, no, you're not.
Meanwhile, speaking of hearing things, I am so overhearing. You do not have permission to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it should
Especially
be
from
like
the audiobook.
Rathar's hammer. You shall be
Yeah.
avenged.
Oh. It's like, what would I do if I do die then, dude? Come on.
Yeah.
And then from both sides. Come on, people.
Yeah, why is this line on both sides of the thing? Like, where's this coming from, and how they got the same language?
Actually, so when it was going on, I was like, wait, what? This is a thing. And then I was wondering, because big spoiler coming up, Fuxner or whatever the dude's name was, is a mole.
That's true.
Yeah.
Did he actually bring that with him from?
Yeah, that's a
From
possibility.
the academy or from the city.
Because I mean, there was that thread.
He's
that
more than a mole
in some ways.
He's much more than a mole. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah. He's much more than a mole. Yeah, absolutely. Like that, and honestly, like that ending when that was revealed, he wasn't the mole I was expecting. Like, I'm saying mole because that's what the sister is calling him, but calling him the thing. But he wasn't the infiltrator I was expecting. But at the same time, whenever that happened, I was like, actually, I should that.
Yeah, I was the same. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss that? That was so perfectly obvious.
Yeah.
I knew something was up. Like, sorry, David.
Sorry, there was a road the conversation like just beforehand where he's like arguing, going, "Where's the Mecca?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's so a plant." Like,
that point,
around there, I was like, "Is it him? Is he the one?" I think he's
yeah.
That
knew
was
something.
a bit of a
demanding to know the physical location of this Mecca that he cannot drive. He has no reason to see at 3 a.m.
Actually, no, I think I don't. Excuse me. What it was is when he was revealed as being the infiltrator or whatever. I was like, oh, the reason why I didn't think it was him, like, because they're talking about how it's that whole relationship of he's allowed to exist with his little band of merry men, provided that he doesn't let it get too out of hand. And I'm like, that feels like a cop-out. That is such a typical like storyline of you have the rebels and you have the not rebels. Like, I think that's what it was actually. That's when I was just like, oh no, that's why I didn't see that coming, because that's just such a cop-out.
I felt like that could actually have been woven into the story of the deity, because that idea of some sort of church or religious organization setting up an antagonist to direct the people's, so rather than the people imploding within the church go, oh, but we hate that person, we hate those people instead. I felt like that could have been, or maybe it's going to be in this, I don't know, but it felt like it could have been woven into this idea, this deity religion idea.
The thing that it really answered for me, like, there was a lot of things that were perfectly obvious that were woven in what that thing sort of answered. But the thing that it answered for me that I think was less obvious was the sheer number of mechas they'd taken down. I was like, if this is supposed to be something really difficult, how is it you guys keep successfully doing this without anybody dying? And you've got this ridiculous number of tattoos, no serious injuries. Like, this is supposed to be hard.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thinking about World War I airplane pilots and the survival rate there, and it's like,
right. Like, that's the thing. I was sort of like, this is kind of ridiculous level of easy for you guys to manage to do this. And that's where my bugbear about the lack of mecha comes from. If I'm going into a mecha story, I want stories where you get to be, with the mecha pilots and like in the mechas and stuff. This flips it. So it's very much like not Pacific Rim. This is taking down the mechas. It's not the fun of mechas in my mind.
I was actually like thinking, like, the first time I saw one of the there was a scene where one of the guards that's inside the mechas, which hope they have good handholds, one of them dies. It's like, oh my God, they're such a stormtrooper. Like, it's like,
or a red shirt or something.
Okay, and I'll play that one time, but again and again and again, these people are basically like,
not even the stormtrooper, Imperial Guard. Like I totally saw them in the gray and red suits. anyway, yeah,
but
from
not as highly trained.
Literally,
Yeah.
one of the first times when they're fighting them, she describes their bad aim. Quite literally. I was like, why are they? She was talking about like how bad their guns were at actually shooting. And I was like, what?
you just-
This country that's built these great big mechas can't make a basic gun that can shoot straight? What the
no, actually, that made sense to me. My brain just kind of heard that and went, obviously, because they put all the time and energy and focus into training their robots to be able to and maintaining their mechas. They're not thinking about the small guns, because why would they need them? They have the big ones. That was what
Then
my
why would
brain
they even need
decided.
guards in the mechas? Do you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't
Yeah,
need
It
exactly.
only
guards
makes
in
sense
the
in the concept of the twist at the end.
But
Like
Yeah.
that we don't care about
see
these
your
guards
point,
because we
Ellie.
want that we're letting these rebels take them down. Otherwise, it's like, well, why would you not put time and effort into protecting your pilots that you've spent a lot of money and these mechas that cost?
They didn't design. Okay, so admittedly, they didn't design the guard that's being in there as part of it. It was only when someone figured out how to get inside the mechas and started trashing them that they decided, oh yeah, and then they put guards in. Now, can you imagine being this guy who's just, his job is sitting outside the academy day in, day out, just keeping post, maybe there's some actual people that might come up, but let's face it, they've had control for ages. So at worst, they have to growl at someone. Then it gets told, sorry, you're the new guy, you get to run around the leg of this mecha. It's running around and fighting. Here's a gun. There's people coming to kill you. Good luck.
no one ever thinks about
shot
the
might be
evil
off.
henchman.
That would be hard. What I couldn't get is how the Gearbreakers, who don't spend their life quite as many hours of their day sitting around desperately trying to hold on to the in a state of heightened alertness inside the mecha walking around,
Mhm.
how they manage to kill the guards so easily because they've got less practice at it.
Yeah. Oh, but this is like a teenage fantasy. That's the whole thing, right? Like
Mhm.
that you could just go in and suddenly be like and just be good at this shit and without any working on it or anything along those lines. No, you're just good.
Yeah, I didn't.
If you're not trying to use a gun, maybe it's easier.
Close the range.
Elegant weapons make
Get in
it
there
so
with
much easier. If I use a sword rather than being at a distance from you, I'm going to be able to kill you easier.
Because we know swords work against guns. Yeah, no way.
In closed spaces.
Right. That was the other
made
thing
of
I kept
metal where
thinking
the
about.
bullet's gonna ricochet, right?
That's the
Maybe
thing I
that's why
kept thinking about with Sona in the like fighting with swords in there. I was like, these are close quarters. Like we're talking about.
She needs
If
a
she had a
dagger.
knife, it would have made more sense.
Yeah.
Well, admittedly, there was also the bit where it's like, you bring your sword? Oh, yes, it's jutting out of you now because you're in a mecha battle holding a sword. So there's a couple of realistic things like that.
Yeah,
like,
that was good. I admit. I enjoyed
Speaking
that.
of like the mecha battles, I did like the last one, the one where with the archangel that was like just what was pretending to be like built into the mountain, and then here she is and she's flying. I liked that. Like I did enjoy that.
Knew there was going to be another archangel though.
Oh no, I knew that. I knew there was going to be a showdown between that I was fine with that. I was waiting for it. So I was like, good, we'll get something, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed that battle.
I was expecting a little bit more of a personal showdown between her and the previous pilots. I was expecting it to be a little bit more interactive, but they didn't really have
guess
comms
that's in the next one because she doesn't have anything other than like she turns back up at the very end and she's got one of the old pilots banging her head into the table because she's killed
Rose.
She's killed Rose.
Spoiler.
So my guess is that that'll happen after she overcomes the brainwashing she's so obviously going to be put through, to become part of the team again.
She'll have to,
She'll have to.
She didn't just kill Rose, she also killed Victoria.
Yeah, but apparently he didn't care about
out
that.
In the field, though. Wasn't that out in the field? She did
that was out in the field.
Mecha to mecha sort of thing.
Yeah.
I would like to bring up Milo.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Milo.
so saddened that he became so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, oh, Milo, there's so much. Earlier on, there's so much more to him, and then it's just like, dude, let it go. Broken record.
I did enjoy
the second dimension of flipping instantly back to being like all with the program. in one foul swoop. Like, you're right, one-dimensional.
I did, however, enjoy the point where that Sona makes to him about his possessiveness. Like, I enjoyed that little discussion and little point out to him about his behavior, because I think that that's something that can happen to someone who is feeling that way, in that a lot of their other personality aspects disappear in that moment of that feeling like I've got the right to this moment, and you don't always see that coming. So
perhaps that's a good point for if the book is aimed at young readers, perhaps it is a good point for them to read, to think about.
I feel like actually it was one of the only really good lesson-y points in the whole story, because everything else is rather ram-railed home, totalitarian government and standing up for the rebels and all, there's a lot of this really big rah-rah type stuff that's a bit. That was one of the nice subtle little lessons that were in there for teenagers that I was like, I like that, thank you very much.
I expected him to kind of flatten out and go away, because they had to make room for the Eris and Sona romance. And Sona, Eris was obviously clinging to him so much in the beginning that they had to do something, and that's kind of an easy.
They were using him as a red herring. To distract you for what was going on with Voxter.
Yeah. That too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because otherwise, if he disappeared, Voxter's behaviour would have been a little bit more obvious. Otherwise, he's not the mole, because that's too obvious. But also, it makes it harder to see past it, especially if you're a teenager already, I guess.
Yeah.
Did anyone else notice that there was especially in the first half of the book, there was an excessive amount of stuff about ripping people's eyes out.
Yeah,
it was
the violence was a bit much.
Again, from different directions in different contexts, and I'm like, this is stopping being a plot point and starting to be a fish.
I actually I was wondering if that got leaned on so hard, because the other descriptions of plugging in didn't seem so confronting.
Oh, might be, yeah.
Because
it was also fight with Ruby, I think it was Ruby. There was a thing about her eye there as well, which didn't have anything to do with the mechas. There was a couple of ones that didn't have anything to do with the mechas or plugging in. That was it, and that's what really actually made me start thinking about it. Was where it stopped being about it being so much about the mechas and plugging in and stuff.
I was actually, I was also kind of thinking there's a nice parallel there between now they walk in both worlds. They walk with the deities, and then they also walk in the human world, because now they can see both ways. And then taking it from her would have been no, this is your initiation. You give me this, so I can use it and take it apart and pull apart your, this whole system. It's part of your whole initiation into being human again, and you can't see.
Tapping into Odin myth.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Tapping into Odin's the myth.
Yeah.
Odin's myth.
Yeah.
Because you got the Valkyrie there.
Yeah.
What? I don't actually know why. How did Odin lose his eye?
I think he gave it up to receive.
Because I think it's his crow or his raven sees for him, so he has one eye that he can see through his raven. But I don't remember what happened. I'll go look it up.
The problem is there's so much of the mythology I haven't read directly, and I've only read it through watching reading game and other well researched science fiction authors. I start reading the Iliad and stuff like that, and wow, people have really got a lot of stuff from these few lines.
Okay. All right. So, sorry. One, I'm going to take a small brag, toot my own horn. I am reading this not in English. I'm reading this in Norwegian because I've been practicing. Anyway, so the story of Odin is that with his eye is he wanted to know everything. He wanted to have all wisdom, and so he sacrificed his eye to Mimir. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. and then threw himself against his spear as a ritualistic
Okay.
suicide. But he's able to see through his ravens, or crows, ravens, crows. Yeah. Mhm.
Interesting. There really is a parallel there then, what Elizabeth's saying. Yeah.
You throwing yourself on your own sword. Just this time it was accidental in the book, but
But it does seem like that's like they're drawing on that deliberately from like in a bunch of different ways to play with.
yeah.
Well, some of the some of the names of the mechas and things had sort of some of them were Nordic, weren't they?
Oh, you had the Valkyries.
There's
so,
the
yeah.
Valkyries and
The
wait, what?
Valkyries.
Now I've drawn a blank. What the other
There was
mechas were?
Phoenix, I think. I can't
Oh,
remember. I
okay.
didn't-
So definitely
Um,
mythology, but not necessarily Norse then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I honestly couldn't remember. I don't remember all of them. Sorry, and I could be wrong about
No.
Phoenix.
No.
No, I think you're right. There were phoenixes. Yeah.
Was there?
Yeah.
I might
There
be
was like a
mixing up
ninja
Phoenix with
esque one
Phantom.
too. Yeah, the Phantom, those were the black ones. They were basically ninja mechas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
I actually
was
found those a
thinking
bit
about
on terrifying side. Honestly, that was nightmare.
Yeah, that one,
Feel,
I was
really.
like, man, yeah, if you could make that work, that would, I'd piss my pants. I'm not someone who normally
Yeah.
does that. But yeah,
Yeah. I would have liked more mecha stuff. Like
yeah.
mecha
I
on
think-
mecha action. That would be good.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was looking for, and that's kind of where we got to at the end.
Mhm.
But I was kind of expecting her to take her mecha with her,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to start using it to fight back. And so, because they kept talking, it made sense what they did, don't get me wrong. It's
Mhm.
just that I was looking for that mecha element, and that would have given it.
Mhm.
However, it made sense what they did, where she wanted to reject all of that, and she had trauma about it, and she didn't want to do it. I don't disagree with that sort of storytelling, that sort of character development thing that happened there. But by the same token, what I was looking forward to was for her escaping with her mecha so that she could fight back, and seeing her doing, like, because we really didn't get to see her be amazing in her mecha that much. It was like,
yeah.
it was all talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that. That the point with the mecha that she got to drive was one that was cobbled together, like bits of, I did actually, I liked the, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, because this, you like, what they've basically done is, again, like, it's that whole, like, you've got this thing that this deific, that beyond all human knowledge and comprehension. And these Gearbreakers are going, well, we can fucking do that. And they reverse engineer it back and then make their own. I liked that. Like, I did like that they did that. But at the same time,
I was expecting that to be the kind of thing they were doing quite regularly, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was willing to believe that if they're kind of just at the point of being able to do this, maybe we were early on enough in their whole existence that was what was happening, was we just got to see their first version, like their what is it, like their first version, like 1.0 of their mecha or something, because they were figured out.
But
I was willing to go with that, because I mean, like, her sister was building all of these fun and funky little, like, mods where they could use them without having to completely self-mutilate, to be able to make use of some of the tech. So
God, Jenny was such a Mary Sue character.
Who?
Freaking
the sister.
Jenny was such a Mary Sue character. She was
No, who's Mary
good.
Sue? Sorry.
It's a terminology for for a character who's just like good at everything.
Oh.
She just was like, oh, look, I get to do all of this technology stuff, and look at these amazing gloves that I made. And
so my guess was that that's because we only know about her through Eris. We hear about her when Eris is talking, and Eris, most of what we hear about what she does, she's big sister. She's the big sister who.
That is fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
Perspective
Who's
matters.
totally tsundere.
Yeah.
Often very homicidal.
Yeah.
I would agree with homicidal.
Okay.
Like, but see, that's why I'm thinking, like, actually, there's probably a lot more to Jenny, and we're not seeing it, because all we ever hear of, she only pops up whenever she's helping Eris with something, or when she's mothering or like mentoring or parenting Eris. So she's gonna seem completely infallible, because Eris really is kind of an immature little. She's not there yet. She'll get there, but she's not there yet. But I mean, because you get where Eris is just like, yeah, she's wobbling around because obviously she's drunk, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, why? You know, like, you're not concerned that she's like that. She's fine. Okay.
Admittedly, her sister did raise her by beating her up periodically, like as in, come on, I'm beating you up. Do you think they're going to care that you're a kid? Get up. Like,
I know. Yeah.
like,
But,
yeah. So
but
I don't
still,
know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that just kind of, to me, sort of cements that idea of she's going to be on a bit of a pedestal because
Yeah.
Eris didn't get much of her parents because I think they were gone when she was about the same age as. I think the parallel was supposed to be that she lost her family about the time that Sona lost hers.
Yeah, they were both about 12.
Yeah.
Sorry, David Shig, were you going to make a point? I think you had a point you were going to make.
I think I made it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I did. There was one that Mel actually touched on that I actually really appreciated. That, like, there was the point in there where everyone just assumed that she wanted to go back and pilot the mecha and stuff, and it's just like, I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm out of that. But, you know, it's like that is not me. That is people being intrusive in my mind, in my body, and like, yeah, it's like they're just assuming that I'm this one-dimensional person that's just going to, you know, that just wants to crush, kill, destroy because I'm not human, and actually I am, and you're really dehumanizing me, and you're assuming that I'm just all into this. Like, I mean, that she does turn around and go, yes, I'll do it, but everyone's assumption that no, she would be so down with that just so quickly, without even bothering to ask. Like, I thought that was well done. That was at least in there, as opposed to.
I think especially too because it came from that she probably was that person initially, and as she got out and she got to grow a little bit and become more human and have more real emotional connections with people as she was getting used to that, it makes sense that that she didn't feel the same way later on as she did it before, because I think she even thinks about that herself, like that was who she was and she's not that anymore.
That's right. There was a bit where she was like, part of the fear of going back into piloting was that she would love the power too much. And she didn't want that. She wanted to stay grounded, I guess, human, you know. Because being no, yeah, I didn't intend to, but it's a good pun. Because part of part of the power of that mecha is to kill people. It's a supreme murder weapon.
I think though that part of the attraction to her of being in the mecha was that she felt like a full human when she was in the mecha suit, because she got to experience feeling that she didn't get when she was in her normal human body as well.
Although apparently there's a way around that.
Yeah, apparently. Which who was surprised? Not me. I was like, yeah, of course.
No, I was like, no, there's got to be something there for that. There's no way they're going to just take all that away. That's entirely too much freedom to give your like chained puppy dog.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. It's a chain. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah. The one of my pet peeves is when shows with giant mechas and things like that defy the laws of conservation of mass and energy. And so I didn't like the gloves. Like I did, but I didn't, because it's really like, no, impossible. Sorry, is there a nuclear reactor inside there that we're not aware of? Or
they just never ran out of the serum, like it just kept going.
No. I'll just suspend judgment for a moment.
I really wanted it to be a thing, though. I think like when I heard about the gloves, I was like, okay, no, I want that to be a thing. I'm going to ignore everything else, which probably made the book a little easier to just kind of go with, even though I didn't, I still had problems with it. But
up until the point they used the word serum, I was just holding on to hope.
Where's this endless supply of serum that they're getting from?
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But no, that was actually probably the most jarring thing out of all. But like, I didn't necessarily believe everything. It didn't make sense. It might not have all fit together perfectly. But the one bit that actually made me feel like this was not real, and actually that this could not happen, was the magic gloves. Like everything else was explainable by science.
They were magic gloves. You're right.
For me, the thing that wasn't believable was the number of mechas that they'd taken down, but there'd never been any like serious retribution, which I think is part and fold, because in the gloves are too powerful, it makes it too easy for them to take them down. Therefore, they take down too many. Therefore, they should have gotten the attention of Godolia.
Sorry, to keep with this whole Norse mythology thing, there is an actual character of Norse mythology that had iron gloves.
Huh.
Yes.
And were
Which
they all
generated
powerful and
magic when they would swing them. Sorry. Okay.
Also, my understanding was that these mechas were supposed to be steam powered, but I do feel like we
where
didn't
did
really
you get that idea from? Was that because
I
of the
could have
reference
sworn
to
there was
them
something like
needing
that at the
coal?
beginning, but they
Yeah, I
don't
didn't catch
describe. They don't
anything about
describe how they're powered otherwise. And I was like, where did I pick it up? Did I imagine it?
Was it because the Godolia needed coal? Because I remember there was something about, you know,
Maybe
they
that was
needed
it.
iron and they needed coal, which,
It was
you know,
definitely
in
something
large
that happened.
amounts. So
It was just definitely something that I had in my brain from a very early stage, which I find it hard to believe came from just me, because I've watched a lot of mecha and only one of them was actually steam powered. So I don't know why I would have invented it myself.
I want to know
But-
where the boiler is and the two coal shovelers who
That's
had to
saying
stoke the
though,
coal.
like, but even if they're not steam powered, how the hell are they powered? They never addressed that.
No, that's the thing is I never noticed anything about being how they were powered. I struggled with that because a lot of it felt kind of, I was like, if this is a post-apocalyptic-esque world, I feel like there's an awful lot of high tech. I couldn't figure out what
It was incongruous, like the technology.
I didn't
right?
feel like
Like-
it was. Oh, sorry.
I thought the gloves were found tech, like they weren't actually made.
No, that's
they're
what she was saying at the beginning, but you found out later that her sister had made them.
Yeah. So she was telling someone else that they were found tech because she didn't want, I think she was protecting her sister. She didn't want people to know that her sister was such a whiz with technology.
Oh, I
Is
got
that
the I got the vibe that the sister had, that they had been found like damaged and the sister had repaired them.
Might have been
That's
that,
what I
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely they came from her sister. Now maybe they were found and damaged. I don't know. I don't remember.
I didn't think that it was a post-apocalyptic world. I thought it was future dystopia like Brave New World or something. Yeah. Was there mention of a apocalypse or world war that I missed?
It just
or
has
something?
that. It has like vibes of both. So I don't really know.
Okay. I mean, it's very dystopia, so it's not either. I'm not even sure there's any topia in there.
But like there's a
Gist.
real incongruity with the tech, with the tech that's in the story. Like you've got this really high level tech stuff, and like down to the point where that serum is coded so that it can't hurt Eris, which so we're genetic stuff here, but at the same time,
serum for fun, like
right? At the same time, they don't have like a mobile phone type technology or any serious
Radio.
like communication technology. Because every time
Or radio.
something would happen, like when she was leaving with Victoria in the two things, and you knew that she was going to fight her, I was like, do they not have some sort of any form of communication? Like,
Yeah, I mean, at least in Pacific Rim they could link and talk to each other.
like there's literally there's no radio. Like we have radio like way back. Like,
but how were they talking between mechas? Did they have giant loudspeakers?
It was 2 tin cans and a string, Shig.
And how were they able to
Important question, are they giant tin cans?
Oh, that's great.
You can imagine the Gearbreakers attacking and then going, one moment I'm on a call. You know?
Just early on.
Sorry, Mel, your microphone's gone.
damn it.
There you are.
I
Okay.
did notice how early on they were just describing how, like, you know, there was this build-up and this arms race of different mechas,
Hello.
and I'm like, oh, that's where the gloves came from, and you know, okay, Gondolia or whatever it is won, and they're obviously like this superpower now and stuff with their inability to use radio. And one of the things that they really got was the fact that you used to be able to drown people, and then they made it so, oh well, you just don't need to breathe. Ignore the fact that you could have given them oxygen or something, but okay, not making them have to breathe, that's great. Apart from the fact that one of them dies by, Victoria, I think, by holding them underwater for about 30 seconds because the cold gets to them, even though she couldn't breathe.
Yeah, so they didn't get rid of the cold aspect.
I actually, when they talked about the Gearbreakers sometimes drown pilots, that I freaked out and thought I had some horror image in myself of all these pilots still alive at the bottom of a lake, but unable to move. And they're stuck there unconscious. That gave me I was like a horror moment, like, oh my gosh, are they still alive? But then they kind of moved away from that, and I went, okay, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Lisa, have you watched The Old Guard?
Not yet.
Old Guard? No.
That is just what I was thinking, Mel.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
It's very
Excellent movie.
How did you watch that, Mel? There's a lot of gore.
Oh, I know, but
You don't like horror.
honestly, they had me with the characters.
horror.
And it's not horror, it's just action, but it's quite gory action.
Mhm.
But when
It's
if
big
you get
action.
me with the characters, I can ignore
Look,
gore. But I
Charlize
can pretty much
Theron,
read
come on.
anything.
Yeah, Charlize Theron. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Honestly, if anything gets me with the characters, I can get past it unless it's like pure horror. So yeah. Like
Okay,
this book, for example. I shouldn't have been able to read this book. Really, I shouldn't have been able to read this book.
To be fair, I actually, at the very beginning, I wanted to send everyone an apology and be like, I'm sorry, it's so dark, it gets better, because I keep doing that. I didn't even think, okay, look, if you look at the cover of this book, it did not, I expected something a bit campier than what we got. Not, I guess
I would have preferred it to be a bit campier, honestly. Honestly, if it had been campier, a lot of our complaints to me would not have been a problem anymore, because if it had been a little bit campier, a little bit more fun and a little less dark, it would have just been a fun ride. But instead it was so dark that you're just like, and
I'm like, and I like dark. I don't mind dark at all, but I did not see that coming with the way the cover was made. And even when I was reading, everyone's like, it's a joyride. It's and I'm like,
no, yeah.
But you know the worst part though, most of the dark stuff, the awful stuff, happens in the first third. That's the bit I did on audiobook while I was stuck in a car.
Oh, that was the day where I was driving back from Canberra, and you had to go for the training or something. Yeah, and I was listening to it on audio. Yeah.
I drove out,
but I was further into the book at that point, so
yeah,
it was kind of okay to audiobook it then.
I think that's one of the reasons why I had to switch as well, because I'd done this section where it was just so much dark and the descriptions of yucky things and stuff that I was just like, the next day I was like, okay, I need to sit down, I'm going to crochet and I'm going to listen to this audiobook. And do you think I did that? No, I didn't. I kept avoiding it. And I was like, okay, I need to switch to ebook, because then when things like this come up, I can skip past them and just get through the book, because I was engaged enough by that point that I did want to continue reading, but I was avoiding the audiobook because I hate being stuck with those descriptions and I can't just glaze over the top.
Jump over,
yeah, it's true. You can't with an audiobook. Yeah. It's true.
Trying to think, do we want to talk about anything else?
I think those were the main things that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else I wanted to bring up.
Oh, I will say one thing. The fact that Xander died in the fire, harsh that it was both Milo and Xander that she lost from her team through different means, obviously. But second of all, we never saw Milo after that point. I was like, I'm pretty sure based on his behavior, he would have been up in her face yelling at her.
Yeah, that was. Now, who was Milo's brother?
Not a red herring. Maybe he's actually also his own little secret agent dude. Maybe, because that was the one thing where I was like, maybe he is the secret, because he just disappeared, and I thought, well, he ran away. Maybe he ran back, and so maybe it is him.
But
Well,
that would
they-
make
that-
some sense if there was something to that later on, because otherwise it didn't make sense to me that he didn't rock up and get up in her face and get all angry at her for not saving his brother. So
Yeah.
So Xander was his brother. Xander
Yeah.
was his baby brother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they were related somehow, and yeah, I think it was brother because there's
They were
brothers
brothers, yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
because they
I
mentioned when they're putting her, when she's having a flashback about the team putting together, that they always go together.
Mm. I wonder whether Milo and his little troop are going to appear. It would be a nice plot device if they appear as sort of rescuers or something in the next book. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but
I
yeah,
don't know.
it'll be an
Don't know.
interesting. Yeah.
Whether or not I do it is the question. Am I curious enough to go and read the second book versus my sick and tiredness of the darkness?
I basically decided I'm going to leave it for now, and we'll see how I feel in a little while from that. After I've had some happier things.
My problem
Yeah.
is too is I've just come off of starting a dark series as well. I'm reading
Oh.
Natasha's series, and she does a bit dark, and so
But
this is
her slow burn pining is excellent.
oh yeah,
Sorry, who I
excellent story.
I've got
Definitely like
Good open anyway.
another very good. By the way, Sapphic as well. So if you want one, highly recommend it.
Ooh,
Sorry,
Thanks,
what is it? Oh, it's called the Jasmine Throne.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it's got that sort of Indian sort of vibe to it as well, which is really quite nice.
But a
and
bit
enjoyable.
dark, did you say?
It's dark on the dark side. Sorry, I should say, yeah, no, it's dark. It's dark.
Okay.
On multiple levels.
Oh,
But the world is super engaging and feels very broad compared to this one, which is why that one will keep me going, whereas this one's questionable. In fact, that one's also a duology, and I've already got the second book ready to go.
Okay. I like the cover a lot.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm reading.
And nice slow burn relationship as well. So
I'm
very
actually
good.
reading Dark Emu at the moment.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, which is not fiction at all, but it's very good.
It's very, very good. Are you doing the audio on that? Because that's awesome.
Oh no, I'm just reading it, and I actually came to it from a completely not through the club, and then I told Bobby about it, and she was like, "Oh, was it G? G recommended that one?"
I think
yeah.
From last year,
Yeah, and I'm like,
well,
okay.
If you get the opportunity, the audio is fantastic because Bruce does it himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
My library had it, so
I
just got it from my library. It was easy as.
Did we talk ourselves out on the book?
I think
I think we might have.
We went pretty well. That was like an hour and a half for a book that nobody is particularly excited to read number 2 about.
Yeah, you guys have convinced me I don't want to put in the effort to read it. Sorry.
Fair enough.
No, I'm glad I read it. Like, I'm glad that I read it, and I can say it. Yeah, okay.
I agree on that because.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't regret reading it, but it just wasn't my favorite. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone as like, you must read this. This is great.
Only if they're super into mecha and they were like, hey, how about this? I'd be like, yeah, if you want something mecha-ish, go for that.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of like, I would have been sad if I hadn't read it because the mecha thing is very much one of my things. And so I was like, yeah, let's read this. Would I say that I enjoyed it? Not so much. It was just fine.
Speaking of mecha things, before we completely sign off, what was the one that you did read this year as well that was about mecha? Something read, woman, Mel, you.
Yeah, there was.
What's right?
There was a book about mechas that you read earlier this year, and you said it was very good.
Book that I read about mechas.
With mechas in it, yeah. Definitely you. It had red in the name or something alluding to red in the name, and it was a woman.
I'm like just going to my what I've read this year list.
That's okay.
I don't remember reading a book with mecha in it this year.
I didn't think it was that long ago either.
No, it was before the wedding, and that's about all I can think of, like timeline wise. It was either before the wedding or after. It was before the wedding.
I'm scrolling through. I've pretty much marked everything this year, regardless. So, no, there's nothing there. Oh, Iron Widow.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yes,
Not read at
highly
all.
recommend Iron Widow.
Iron Widow. Okay.
Excellent mecha
Oh,
story.
It's
Excellent.
a very red cover, Bobby.
That's
so
probably what
yeah.
I was thinking of actually, is the red cover. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
it
that
was,
makes
Oh, would you
I mean-
recommend that one?
I would highly recommend that
Look at
one.
that
Iron
cover.
Widow. Okay.
It's gorgeous.
Beautiful cover and polyamorous relationship.
and nominated for a Lodestar Award this year, though. I
Yeah.
think it lost out. Can't remember to whom. Let me have a
But
quick look.
also quite a dark story as well, especially how it starts out as well.
Okay.
Less gore though, more
Okay.
dark.
Okay.
It's not a spoiler to say because it happens right at the beginning. It's very, very Chinese historically based mecha, and her feet are bound to the point that she is, this is the main character, she is disabled, as in she has to use a cane to get around, things like that. So it's very realistic on that element, but that's a good part of what I found very difficult in the beginning part of the book.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I might have put a trigger warning on that one because I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
need to be aware of these things. Yeah, so
Yeah.
content warning for attempted rape, violence, female oppression, and torture.
Yes, I remember now. I remember seeing that whenever you put your review up. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
excellent story. And I'm very much like, second book, come on.
see, if you're saying that, then because like usually you can suggest me books and I'm pretty good with it. It's just the other way around that I'm not the greatest.
Yes, I know I'm very difficult on the dark stuff because, and I freely know that it's not that I can't
It's
read
also the
dark.
things
It's
that
more,
I tend to find things that are like, I'm like, this isn't dark, and other people read and they're like, yes, it is.
Look, I find everyone's radar is a bit different on that because I'm the same, Bobby. I'm like, this is fine, and everyone's like, "Whoa, that's really dark."
Okay.
Okay.
but people sort of assume that I always want like really happy books, and I do really like happy books and that sort of thing. But I can deal with dark as long as there's something that engages me in the story to
Yeah.
carry me through. I need something that sort of makes me want to keep reading. And
No, and I
that's-
appreciate. Yeah, I can appreciate that. It's more like, but I feel bad because I'm like, oh, I just handed you something, and you probably thought it was totally fine, and it was traumatic. So
I did expect this one not to be as dark as it was, but it had other engaging elements that got me through.
yeah, I mean, I had the same problem last year. The book I picked last year, I was like, it might be a little dark. It was so I couldn't finish it. I was just like, nope.
What was that again?
I mean, it was a South African black author, and it turned out to be about
Oh,
zombies, which I
yeah.
didn't actually anticipate. Somehow
I
it
remember
ended
that
up being about zombies, and it read very much like a noir, but not in a noir that was fun. Like,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think I was
Yeah,
like
I
the
think
only
that-
member of the book club that finished that one.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
even
No,
attempt
no,
that one
even
because I was
that
like, "Oh."
nope. Yeah, I don't know.
I find I've got a pretty good radar for myself. Like,
Yeah.
as long as nobody takes offense to the fact that I opt out because I read it and I'm like, yeah, no, I can't handle that.
I need to learn how to do that because the problem I have is some part of me says you have to finish reading this when it's like triggering me. I'm like, oh, you have to keep going, keep reading. It's like, I really want to stop.
You can break up with a book.
Nye constantly tells me to stop reading books because he can tell when I'm upset with a book and that I'm not having a good time. He's trying to do it on this one, but I was like, I'm at 80%. I'm going to finish it when I'm at 80%. Yes, I'm having a hard time, but I'm at 80%. It's fine.
Yeah. Actually, that's Chris is a good at spotting that as well. My husband, yeah, he's like, yeah, you probably should stop reading that. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Rosewater by Tade
Rosewater, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Rosewater.
I knew that was not a book for me.
Okay.
That is not, yeah, it was not what I thought it was going to be at all.
Yeah, it's like the Toby Day series that you had, but you did tell me that one was a bit dark. Bobby.
Yeah,
Like you did actually warn me that.
it is dark anyway.
It is
yeah.
dark, but I enjoy it, and I like what Mel's saying. Like it's got enough compelling in it to pull you along. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep going with this because I want to know what happens, and I want to read more of these characters.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of unpacking that certain characters have to do, and it takes about 5 books before you get past some of that. So for anyone who's really not into that, you pick up the first one, you're like, no, I can't do this. Try book 5 or 6, and then decide if you want to go back and read the rest.
And see, that's probably one of the reasons I'll never start.
Other issues you have to get through.
Well, yes, but it becomes much more fun. I think
you could read One Salt Sea as a first, maybe.
Yeah, that's the
maybe
first one where she, but that's where she really shrugs off a lot of. She just
like if you're gonna,
she accepts like where she's starting from, that she's kind of starting over, I guess, and she just embraces it. Anyway, we should
wrap up the recording. We can
sorry. Oh, we're not talking about the book anymore. Anyway, what's up next month? Thank you for joining.
Okay, so next month is Aurora's End, which is the 3rd book in the Aurora cycle by Amy Kaufman and Jay Christoph.
Yay.
Australian authors.
Yay!
All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.